Szlyk, who is a professor of English and reading at Montgomery College. She also edits The Song Is, a blog zine for poetry and prose inspired by music, especially jazz. She is the author of a full-length collection, On the Other Side of the Window, and 2 chapbooks, Listening to Electric Cambodia, Looking Up at the Trees of Heaven, and I Dream of Empathy. Her poems have appeared in Bird's Thumb, Block Raven Review, Cactifor, among others, and in the anthologies Resurrection of a Sunflower and Epiphanies and Late Realizations of Love. She and her husband, Ethan Goffman, founded It Takes a Community, a poetry group that meets at Montgomery College. And we are delighted for a whole lot of reasons that we have just been able to have people going back and forth between here and there. And I mean, literally, we are making a community, and that is just absolutely awesome. Please welcome Marianne Szlyk.
Thank you, Lucinda, and thank you, Lolita. I know it's kind of a hard act to follow, but and thank you, Ethan, for videotaping this. My father is going to be watching this, so we'll see how this affects things. The first poem I want to read is from I Dream of Empathy. And this is a book with a really cool cover that my friend B. Garth did, and it's a painting called Empathy. Crepuscle with Callie was inspired by Thelonious Monk's Crepuscule with Nellie. And the scene that I'm basically writing about is Callie's nightmare, and in which she is stuck in the house of the jazz baroness, the woman that Monk lived with for the last few years of his life, and she was a cat lady, basically. And this would drive Callie nuts, even though she herself is a cat. Crepuscle with Callie. Waves of scent wash over her. Urine, human and animal, sweat, damp wool, bad coffee, no cream, worse cigarettes, a perfume called joy. A landscape quakes. Calico, tuxedo, gray, orange, white, black, tabby, Manx. The notes on the record skip as the landscape shimmers and shifts. Chase or be chased, nip or be nipped, lick or be licked. The other cats multiply. They leap onto counters and crowd around windows. Lights twinkle with kindness out there. Inside, the cats multiply, sniffing at cold coffee cups and ashtrays, chasing, nipping, licking. Behind the last door, the man in the suit and hat will not stir. He barely breathes. They say that one night he played the piano with his elbows while the sax wailed like a car alarm from the future. Another night he did not play at all. If she were herself, she'd rattle the blinds until he awoke and let her out of this nightmare. He doesn't have to play the piano for her, just get her out. Again, the landscape shifts, the record skips. Beyond the last door, Callie still seeks the threads of her waking life. No coffee, no cigarettes, no chasing, nipping, licking, the presence of real joy. Thanks. Okay. The other poem I'd like to read, yes, like Lolita, I'm reading a poem about the stories my mother told. And, a very different situation. I grew up in Massachusetts. My mother grew up in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, so we used to drive up there back and forth because that's where my grandmother lived. My mother told stories. Our mother remembered cars with no radios, so she told stories. We munched on her favorite candy, Necco wafers, the color and flavor of spring coat buttons, muted pastels, pink, gray, white, green. She told stories all the way past the road to Whalen Park. Its wooden roller coaster, she said, had killed a soldier just home from the war. She told stories as we crossed over the Nashua River, that ran red or blue or green, depending on the paper Wallace's mill was making. As a girl in a pinafore, my grandmother had waded in that water. Mother told stories as she drove past the site of Mal's Goody Goody, where she used to play under the tables, while the adults played bridge and slipped the children pennies and Necco wafers to match their Sunday best, muted, pastels, plaids, and checks. Our mother told stories all the way to grandmother's house. We sat in the front seat, crunching the last of the wafers, discs less sweet than our breakfast cereal. We hoped for more, but sometimes tasted the pale licorice, pale lavender that Mother recalled. Okay. And I want to just quickly get some water. Even though I don't have to use my school teacher's voice, it still goes. The next set of poems I want to read are from, I want to read a couple from On the Other Side of the Window, and then I want to read a new poem. The first poem in The Other Side of the Window, this is one of my ecological environmental poems. It's Easter 2116. A few years back, I forget which year it was, we had the earliest Easter possible, and the next time that Easter would be that early would be in 2116. So I decided this would be a cool topic for a poem. And I used to read a lot of science fiction when I was younger, so it all kind of bears on that. Easter 2116. Among the late afternoon walkers in the square, I tighten the hood around my pale face and squint through goggles for any scrap of sun that squeezes through. I could be on Bradbury's Venus on the sweltering day when the sizzling rain pauses, but I am on Earth. In the absence of wind, showers, and past birdsong, I hear my robe swishing. I will myself not to think about music, my own earworms, or suggestions sent to me like headaches. I hear only the buzz of mosquitoes, balked by the heavy clock. Shuffling, weighed down, I watch holograms hover over the stones of the square that resist ceaseless rain and wind. The holograms show skin, unlike the living. Mosquitoes will not bite them. They have no blood to poison. Holograms do not talk to me. I am too poor and homely. They are as silent as the electric cars and aircraft that swarm the city and beyond. I walk to the shore of the acid ocean, the beach lacquered with toxic jellyfish and seaweed. I smell nothing. I have been walking here forever in search of something. A hologram in cargo shorts floats above like a New Age Jesus going out to Peter's boat. I look out to the horizon. The waters cover the cities where, as children, the holograms wore Easter outfits and couples sauntered out in the sweetly scented sun so many years ago as music played from transistor radios. The rain will resume. The music will as well. For now, I enjoy their absence. Okay. So as a change of pace, what I'd like to do is to read, since I read a Callie poem, I'd like to read a Thelma poem. Two cats. They each deserve their time in the sun. Callie is definitely a cat in her poem. The Thelma poem, Thelma actually is a human being. For some reason, I think it's easier to make her a human being. I guess she has more of a poetic human being personality. And I don't know if any of you remember the album or the CD Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. There's one instrumental called Let's Go Away for a While. And that's what I decided to write about. And I think my father might like this poem because it's about going to the Cape and driving. Let's go away for a while. Thelma and her husband sing along to Pet Sounds when driving to the Cape. Jerry Cole's guitar begins, "Wouldn't it be nice?" And they launch into song, his voice too wild, hers with the Texas accent she can never lose. They plunge in, splashing past strip malls and swamp. But this instrumental is the song she loves best. The vibraphone, like sunshine against drums like surf. The horns like the wave that crashes furthest onto the rocks, not quite the highway. The strings are clouds, meringue she has whipped up in a stainless steel bowl at home. She almost forgets that the East Coast has weak surf, and slimy seaweed clings to waders' calves in warm, knee-high water as she and her husband waddle in among the thin girls from Boston. She then remembers cold, cloudy Mondays when the two of them drive back home listening to their inland music, Chicago blues, Texas swing, Hank Williams honky-tonkin', the old songs that better suit their voices. Maybe she likes that this instrumental comes before anyone can see the bridge or the traffic. Or she likes to catch her breath before Sloop John B.'s lyrics grind her down like the refrain of a whiny child. She catches her breath. Okay. And I'd like to do a new poem. I'm from, well, I was born in Worcester. I'm not actually from Worcester. I'm from a suburb of Worcester, Massachusetts. Worcester's my father's hometown. I tend to write more about, I guess, Fitchburg because it was more exciting, but here's a poem about Worcester. And also the interesting thing about this poem is a 5/4. Tad Richards, a poet I know from Facebook, taught me this form, and I'm not going to tell you what a 5/4 is, or else I'm going to use up all my time. But facing Worcester is a 5/4, so it's a form. Facing Worcester. Myself a compass needle I face, north towards my birthplace, the antique hospital on one of 7 hills in the city of spas, piazzas, parlors, and tonic, words no one uses anymore. I face rice squares, African cloth stores, bodegas, and Indian fonts on bags of rice and red lentils, remembering the Polish nuns who fought Grampy on how to say his name. I face the city of Water Street, barrels of dill half sours, kosher soap, hipsters whiskey bars. Okay, and I think maybe I have time for a poem or two. I want to read, my husband and I are in an anthology, Music of the Aztecs. Our launch party is April the 20th at the Writers Center, 6 to 8. I'm going to read a couple poems from, actually a poem, maybe a poem from here, and then I want to go to one last poem to finish up. The poem I want to read from Music of the Aztecs, it's an ekphrastic poem. And it's actually about, yes, a photograph I saw on the internet. Okay, I guess, you know, when I think about where I come from as a poet, sometimes I think like a musician, I come from the internet. So this is Facing East at Dawn. It was also in an anthology of Polish poems, you know, poems by Polish writers. Facing East at Dawn, after a photograph by Northscapes Photography, Presque Isle, Maine. The driftwood is a hand grasping something, then letting it go. Stars scatter above as if this hand had tossed them up into the morning sky. Up there, they grow brighter. They will fade when sunrise washes away night. Yet there is light now. Stars band together into the Milky Way. Clouds form like clusters of maple leaves clinging to water. The water is itself. It reflects nothing. It rests beneath the sky, awaiting sunrise and its long day as a sparkling mirror. It contains everything: cans, rocks, hornpout, weeds, Before dawn, its splash on the shore is quieter. No birds break its surface. Across the lake, someone's car rounds the curve. From the next town, nearer to sunrise, its light is a fallen star. Soon others will follow. Okay. So I think maybe I do have time for one. I'm going to read my last poem. And that is the poem that ends on the other side of the window. My husband and I met in Lafayette, Indiana. He was an adjunct and I was a grad student at Purdue University. We happened to be there in 2001. And this poem is called Lafayette, September 11th, 2001. Later that morning, after classes were canceled, I crossed the river beneath a perfect sky, going home to you. We didn't think that Al-Qaeda would reach us in this college town, this pin that the angels danced on. We listened to the radio. We thought about stopping by your parents. There, your mother watched the news all day, as if it were the rain that would not fall. Instead, I watched the trucks trailing American flags rush up and down Ferry Street, making it a river we could not cross. I wish it had rained that morning while the passengers were lining up at Logan and the workers were streaming from the subway, standing at the window, looking at the sky, fierce, even in Lafayette, city of wedding cake houses and candy stores. I prayed for rain. Thank you.